What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the JT Sports Podcast. I'm your host, JT. We got a couple of quarterback changes happening in the NFL right now. Aidan O Connell is taking over for Gardner Minshew as the Raiders starting QB. Rookies Spencer Rattler and Drake Maye are getting their first official starts this Sunday. And we got to dive into these quarterback changes. Also got some thoughts on the Jacksonville Jaguars. Before we dive into it, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss when we go live and drop new content. And let's dive into it. So the Raiders are making a switch at quarterback. They're rolling with Aidan O Connell in replace of Gardner Minshew. And let's not act like this is a big surprise. When Minshew was named the starter a few weeks ago, most of us felt like it was a matter of when, not a matter of if, Gardner Minshew was going to get replaced, and the Raiders' offense hasn't really been that good. Gardner Minshew, he wasn't that bad for the first couple of games, but against the Denver Broncos, he threw a pick six in that game, and then he threw another interception later on. They put in Aidan O Connell, and he didn't really do no better. He threw an interception as well. The main reason why the Raiders' offense has struggled hasn't really been because the quarterback play necessarily has been that bad. It's been because they don't have a good offensive coordinator. You see, this offseason, they hired Luke Getsy, who was the offensive coordinator last year for the Chicago Bears, and most Bears fans blame him for the reason why Justin Fields didn't work out last season. And the Raiders' first preference as their OC was Cliff Kingsbury, but he ended up going to the Washington Commanders because they offered him more money. So when you bring in an offensive coordinator that his offense is more dependent on running the football than it is quarterback play, you're getting an OC that doesn't know how to elevate the quarterback play. And with Luke Getsy calling plays for you, it doesn't really matter if you have Aidan O Connell or Gardner Minshew starting. You're still not going to get a lot of production out of that position because your play caller doesn't know how to elevate whoever is behind center. And Aidan O Connell now, he's in his second season. Many Raiders fans were pretty high on this dude based off how he played last season. He had a great Thursday night game against the Los Angeles Chargers, 4 touchdowns, helped Brandon Staley get fired, and his rookie season was pretty solid considering the expectations and the situation that he had to deal with Josh McDaniels getting fired, not really having a lot of practice time with the first stringers, and you thought that he would have won the quarterback battle during the offseason, but Antonio Pierce opted to go with Minshew because he had the experience. He was a little bit more aggressive when it came to taking chances downfield, but that ultimately was the reason why Gardner Minshew got benched. He couldn't take care of the football. With Aidan O Connell, he doesn't take as many chances or risk as what Minshew does with the ball. He's a little bit more conservative, play things safe, but Aidan O Connell is probably the best quarterback the Raiders can start with what they have to work with that kind of votes well for their philosophy. They want to run the football. They want to play good defense. And one thing about AOC is that he has better ball security than what Gardner Minshew does. And when you're going to play this brand of football, you got to have a quarterback that doesn't turn the football over a lot. And that's something that Gardner Minshew couldn't do. Aidan O Connell should do a much better job of that. But how many explosive plays are you going to be able to generate with AOC in? You don't have Devontae Adams anymore. He's about to get traded. You do got Brock Bowers, who would love to see Aidan O Connell target him a lot more, get him more involved. Jacoby Myers has been really good. Trey Tucker, he's had a couple of big plays as well. It seemed like Trey Tucker and Gardner Minshew had a really good rapport because normally Trey Tucker was the dude who Gardner Minshew was hitting on a lot of these big throws downfield. So for Aidan O Connell, the downside with him is that you're not going to have that same big playability with him at quarterback as what you did with Gardner Minshew. Aidan O Connell is one of those quarterbacks that he's going to get the ball out fast. When he sees an open guy, he's going to let it rip, and he's going to take what the defense gives him. And I felt like Aidan O'Connell should have been the starting quarterback going into this season, because if you're a defensive-minded coach and you know that the style of football that you want to play revolves around ball security, why would you start Minshew, who's one of the more aggressive quarterbacks in the league? One thing about Aidan O'Connell that I like is that he plays well within structure. He doesn't play hero ball. He doesn't do anything extra. And he doesn't take unnecessary sacks like what Gardner Minshew had the tendency to do. Now, the ceiling with AOC isn't really that high. At best, you're looking at somebody who can be an average quarterback, a tad bit below the level that Derek Carr played at. And that's not necessarily bad. You're just looking for somebody who can execute the offense. You know that the situation you're in right now, you're not about to get Tom Brady out of Aidan O'Connell. But in comparisons to Gardner Minshew, with you having a defensive-minded coach, you can't have a dude in Minshew who's throwing pick sixes giving the other team 3 points. That's just something that can't happen, and you got to start the dude who emphasizes ball security. Now, is this going to dramatically improve the Raiders' offensive performance, making this switch from Minshew to Aidan O'Connell? I don't really think so. And Antonio Pierce coming into this season, he knew that his quarterback position wasn't that good. He even acknowledged it after the second preseason game when he was asked about the performance of these two quarterbacks at the time. He pretty much said he wasn't really high on either one of them. And really, if you're the Raiders, I believe it will be in your best interest to just go ahead, wave the white flag on this season, and tank for Shedeur Sanders in next year's draft class. He is, without a doubt, the best quarterback in the 2025 NFL draft. He's accurate, makes great decisions with the football, and he's a franchise-caliber quarterback. That is the only thing that is holding the Raiders back from being a playoff contender. You're in the division where you got Bo Nix and Sean Payton. Bo Nix has played pretty well up to this point. You got to worry about Mahomes, Justin Herbert, and with how difficult your schedule is, with you having a lot of good quarterbacks still to play, you need better quarterback play than what you're getting out of AOC and Gardner Minshew. I don't expect Aidan O'Connell to be too much better than what Gardner Minshew is. And don't be surprised if you end up seeing another quarterback change of the Raiders going back from AOC to Gardner Minshew. Neither one of these quarterbacks looks like the long-term answer for the Raiders. And it just looks like this is a throwaway season for a team that the expectations really weren't that high to begin with. At best, you were hoping that you could be a 9-win team based off how well you ended last season off. But you just don't have that guy at quarterback. And your schedule is just way too tough to just try to win games based off great defense and running the football, which the run game for the Raiders also hasn't been as good as expected, and that's kind of hindered the offense as well. But with Aidan O'Connell, at least you're going to get somebody that can take better care of the football, which should help out your defense because they're not in bad field position from these turnovers, and you're not gifting the other team free points. Hey man, have you hit that like button yet? Have you subscribed to the channel? Because if not, what are you doing? It only takes less than a second to do so, man. I love football. You love football. This is the best place to be if you are a diehard fan of football, man. We're talking NFL, college football, 24/7, 365 days a year. If you are a diehard football fan, this is the right place for you. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit that bell icon so you don't miss when we drop new content, and go live. Spencer Rattler is getting his first official start for the Saints against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Derek Carr is going to miss some time with the oblique injury. And I was surprised that we didn't see Spencer Rattler Monday night against the Kansas City Chiefs. I was like, Jake Haener is still the backup quarterback for New Orleans? Like, where's the Rattler? Let out the rattlesnake. And I was really high on Spencer Rattler coming out of this past year's draft class. I felt like he was the most underrated quarterback from the 2024 QB class. He had a pretty good career at South Carolina. It's just that he didn't have a good team around him, but he does have a really good arm. I believe that he plays pretty well within structure when he has time to throw. And this is a New Orleans Saints offensive line that has played better than I expected. And the thing that I love about Spencer Rattler is that he's way more aggressive than what Derek Carr is. Derek Carr, the first 2 weeks of this season, he was playing at a level that I've never seen him play at since his back injury against the Law when he was playing for the Raiders. He was taking shots downfield. He was being aggressive. And then after the first 2 weeks, Derek Carr kind of just came back to earth. With Spencer Rattler being a young quarterback, you're going to have the possibility for you being more explosive in the passing game, because with this being a young guy in there, he's going to be gun shy. He's going to want to rip the football. He's going to be aggressive. He's going to make throws that he probably has no business making, but he's going to make them anyway just because he's young and inexperienced. And that could be a bad, but it also could be a positive, because Chris Olave, his brother, recently came out on X and was like, only one target? Come on now. So there's a possibility that we see Chris Olave, his play start to elevate with this quarterback change, because Spencer Rattler threw a really nice deep ball at South Carolina when he had the time to win. The reason why South Carolina, wasn't great had nothing to do with Spencer Rattler's play. If anything, he was the only constant that they had for why that offense somewhat was a threat at times. But the offensive line failed them. The receivers weren't really that good. Now in New Orleans, you could see Spencer Rattler play better than what he ever did in college. And with Clint Kubiak being the offensive coordinator, maybe him getting Spencer Rattler is going to allow him to do some things that he wasn't quite able to do with Derek Carr. Spencer Rattler is more athletic than what Derek Carr is, so you have the ability to get some more designed bootlegs, get Spencer Rattler outside the pocket. Maybe you have a quarterback who can do a better job at extending plays, because one thing about Derek Carr is that once the play is dead, it's dead. He's not one of those dudes that can turn a negative play into a positive play. He's just one of those dudes that if the play breaks down, the protection breaks down, that's it. With Spencer Rattler, though, it's a complete opposite. He's not Lamar or Kyler Murray, but he does have enough speed where if you give him a little bit of some green grass, he can get you 3-4 yards, keep the chains moving. He can run around, buy time for guys to get open. He's very good throwing on the run as well, has a very good arm, has great arm talent. He can throw the football with good velocity from multiple different arm angles. I'm really excited to see what Spencer Rattler has. The Saints coaching staff, Dennis Allen, Clint Kubiak, they've given Spencer Rattler a lot of praise throughout the offseason, and it's a large reason why he's getting the start over Jake Haener, who has a little bit more experience than him. And plus, there's a good amount of Saints fans that believe that Spencer Rattler possibly could be the future for this franchise at quarterback. This is a good opportunity to see what he has. And plus, the season is kind of going left for New Orleans. You started out 2-0. Everybody thought you were the biggest surprise in the NFL, and you've really came back down to reality. You're on a 3-game losing streak, and maybe making this quarterback change, although it wasn't intended, could be what you need to, reignite that spark that you had to start this year on offense with Spencer Rattler in that quarterback now. You do got a really good supporting cast around him. Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, he's pretty good as well. He started to come on over the last couple of weeks. You still got Alvin Kamara in the backfield. And with how good the offensive line has been, this is a pretty good situation for Spencer Rattler. Although he does have a defensive-minded coach, Clint Kubiak has proven to be a pretty serviceable offensive coordinator. And with him getting Spencer Rattler, maybe it opens things up for New Orleans offensively now. The New England Patriots are making a really bad decision starting Drake Maye against the Houston Texans. This is a Patriots offensive line that has given up 5 sacks over their past 3 contests on average, which isn't good. Jacoby Brissett, he's been the most sacked quarterback in the NFL, also the most hit. And the reason why this is a really bad decision for New England to start Drake Maye against Houston is because Houston has the second best pass defense in the NFL. They also happen to be one of the best teams in the league at generating pressure on the quarterback. And putting Drake Maye in a situation like this is pretty much career suicide because with him being so young and inexperienced, him playing behind a bad offensive line isn't going to do anything but make him develop bad habits because with him getting hit left and right, when you're getting sacked 8-9 times a game, it's hard to trust your offensive line to protect you. So therefore, you never improve your pocket presence. Therefore, you're going to allow this dude to get the shit kicked out of him for the entirety of this season. He loses his confidence going into year 2, and then you have the exact same situation with Drake Maye next year that Bryce Young currently is in with the Carolina Panthers. He got the hell knocked out of him all his rookie season, and then in year 2, when you do improve his supporting cast, you don't see him take that big step in improvement from year 1 to year 2 because of his rookie season being compromised with how bad the situation was that you threw him into, because he started to develop those bad habits because the offensive line wasn't good. And if you can't trust your offensive line to protect you, how are you ever going to improve your ability to throw the football from within the pocket when you're only going to have 0.8, 0.9 of a second to throw the ball? You know, this is not a situation that is conducive to Drake Maye being able to thrive, grow, and develop. And I really thought that the Patriots not starting him this year was the best thing for him. This was somebody who already was coming into the NFL not having a lot of experience. He only started at North Carolina for 2 years, and he had up and down tape. You know, his decision-making kind of was a little bit wonky. His footwork in the pocket wasn't really all that great, but he does resemble a lot of Josh Allen when he was coming out of Wyoming. Although he was super raw, he did have a lot of tools and a lot of great traits that if you can put it all together with his arm strength, his athleticism, he could become one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. But I don't really like the situation that Drake Maye's being thrown into when you're going up against a team that has one of the best defenses in the NFL. This doesn't have anything to do with he's an NFL quarterback. He might as well get used to getting hit now. It has everything to do about helping build up your quarterback for the long term. The Patriots were never going to win anything this year regardless of who was the starter. So if you were going to lose games this year, you might as well did it with Jacoby Brissett getting beat up. You were not going to gain anything by throwing out Drake Maye. Yeah, he can get some experience, but what meaningful experience is he getting? What, learning how to grow accustomed to getting the hell knocked out of him when he's getting sacked 8-9 times a game? It was better off letting Drake Maye learn from the sidelines for this entire season. Maybe you put him in garbage time when you're getting blown out, or, you know, the final 4 weeks of the season when you got nothing left to play for but draft positioning. But you don't gain anything by putting Drake Maye out there in this bad of a situation. You don't really have any good receivers outside of Pop Douglas. Your offensive line is atrocious. Your run game has been inconsistent with Ramondre Stevenson's inability to be able to take care of the football. So this really is probably the worst situation that any rookie quarterback could be in. Not only that, but the offensive coordinator for New England, Alex Van Pelt, he's not good neither. The last time he called plays was for the Buffalo Bills like 14 years ago in 2009. And the Buffalo Bills that year had the worst offense in the NFL. They ranked near the bottom in every statistical category on offense the year Alex Van Pelt was calling plays. He never called plays in Cleveland. Kevin Stefanski did. So the situation Drake Maye is in right now, I think, is really terrible. And they pretty much said, we're going to throw this young man out to the woods. We're going to allow this dude to get baptized. He's going to get crucified behind that offensive line. And I'm just really wishing the best for Drake Maye because I was pretty high on him coming out. You know, the upside is there. He could give you better quarterback play than Jacoby Brissett, you know, but it's really hard to see Drake Maye playing at a high level in this bad of a situation with so many things that he has to overcome. Not having good receivers, not having a good offensive line, not having a good play caller. You already have a defensive-minded coach, which doesn't do you any favors neither, which makes the offensive coordinator more important, which you whiffed on that hire. I just really am concerned about the well-being and the long-term development as Drake Maye being the starter in New England. I felt like this was a premature decision. You can say that guys in the locker room were going on happy, but it's just you weren't going to win anything this season anyway. And the players understood this. They knew the situation that they were walking into this season. If you were trying to win, why would you re-sign with New England if that's the case? You could have signed with any other organization. This team was never going to be anything better than possibly a 3-4 win team at best. This is a really head-scratching decision that the Patriots are making right now, going from Brissett to Drake Maye. I don't see this thing ending well. I have a subscriber that DM'd me. He asked me, what are my thoughts on the Jacksonville Jaguars after getting their first win of the season against the Indianapolis Colts, and can they sustain the level of play last week for the remainder of this season? I'm going to be honest about the Jacksonville Jaguars, man. I don't expect this team to go that far this year. They may probably win 4 or 5 more games this year, but that probably is going to be it. They could turn their season around. They did it before in 2022. They got out to a slow start, and they were able to take advantage of a pretty easy second half schedule. But this season, you're playing up against some of the best teams in the NFL. You got the Minnesota Vikings coming up, the Detroit Lions, you got the Green Bay Packers. This Sunday, you travel to London to play the Chicago Bears, which is a winnable game, but last week against the Colts kind of was the best performance that we've seen the Jaguars have offensively all season long. Trevor Lawrence played the best game that he's played in a year and a half, 2 touchdowns, went 28-34, only 1 interception, but the main reason why Jacksonville's offense was so potent last week against Indianapolis is because the Colts got a really bad defense, and Tank Bigsby had an incredible day on the ground. He had 7.8 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns, over 100 yards rushing. He was phenomenal. And the Jaguars' offense has been pretty efficient when Tank Bigsby has been getting the bulk load of the carries at running back. And if Jacksonville is going to find a way to turn their season around, it's going to be because of Tank Bigsby. They're going to have to put the ball in his hands a lot more, because obviously when he does have the ball, it votes well for the offense and they're at their best. And you need Trevor Lawrence to keep playing this level of football. Against the Houston Texans, he played pretty well, although they lost that game because they couldn't execute in the fourth quarter. But this defense is not good. And I'm really surprised at how bad this defense has looked, because last year, when Ryan Nielsen was the defensive coordinator for the Atlanta Falcons, I felt their defense was better than what the statistics showed with all of the turnovers that Desmond Ridder had. But the secondary still hasn't really shown that much improvement. You gave up 359 passing yards and 3 touchdowns to old man Joe Flacco in replace of Anthony Richardson. This defense has to step it up, because when you're going up against the Chicago Bears, you're going up against a team that has one of the best defenses in the NFL. And if your defense can't find a way to slow down Caleb Williams, who has started to pick up his level of play over the last couple of weeks, it's going to be a long afternoon for you. And we've seen the last time when Trevor Lawrence went up against the elite defense against the Buffalo Bills, it was an awful showing. Now, if Trevor Lawrence and the rest of this offense really has started to figure things out, and that performance last week against the Colts kind of was a turning point for them, then yeah, these next 2 weeks, if you can find a way to beat Chicago and you can win against New England, which you definitely should win that one, you kind of are right back in the mix of being able to make it to the playoffs. Now, you may not be in the running to win the division this year, because the Texans should win it, and not only are they going to win the division, but they probably could end up winning the 1 seed in the AFC this year. But you could find a way that, if you end up winning your next 2 games and you get the 3 and 4, then you're pretty much back in the mix. The Packers are a beatable team. Their defense isn't that good. The Philadelphia Eagles are in shambles right now because of how bad Nick Sirianni has been and the rest of that staff. And the Minnesota Vikings, you probably can't win that game. But against Detroit, their defense isn't good neither. So if the Jaguar season comes down to them having to be able to outscore everybody, and Trevor Lawrence can play the level of football that he played against Indianapolis for the entirety of this year, and you get Tank Bigsby continuing the role, then yeah, they possibly could maybe go 9-8, maybe find a way to sneak into a 10-7 record. You get that 7-6 seed in the AFC playoffs, and you know, yeah, the season ain't over yet with that win, but I strongly doubt that Jacksonville is going to be able to rally, because it seems like Doug Peterson, it kind of is all but over for him. He recently, in one of his press conferences and their loss to the Buffalo Bills, he didn't want to take accountability for it. He said, you know, that the players got to execute, guys got to play better. Said the same thing against the Houston Texans. And anytime you ask a head coach, you know, about his job security, and, you know, he starts blaming the players somewhat, it kind of is a sign that it's all but over. And, you know, that win against Indianapolis, to me, it did nothing but prolong the inevitable. Doug Peterson is a great guy. He's one of those coaches that you hire his first 2 years. He can help turn things around, get you into the playoffs, but eventually his teams peak. And once they peak, they have an ugly downfall, and that's what we're seeing in Jacksonville right now. Trevor Lawrence, you need him to continue to play the level of football that he did against Indianapolis, which I don't think is sustainable with you going up against a defense as good as what the Chicago Bears is. Plus, you got to play the Vikings as well. So it's just too many talented teams that the Jaguars have to play this year for me to really believe that, you know, that win against Indianapolis was a sign of things are about to get better down here in Duval. I think that things are still going to be as bad as what they've been for the majority of this year. And although the real football season, I've always said this, starts after Thanksgiving, that's when the contenders separate themselves from the pretenders. It's also when you want to play your best football. I just can't see Jacksonville doing it right now with how bad Trevor Lawrence has been. And even with him having some of his best performances of the season, the Jaguars still have struggled to close out games. You know, the fourth quarter against Houston, they had control of that game for the majority of it. And then you get into the final couple of drives, you get stopped inside your own territory, and CJ Stroud, you give him an opportunity to win the game. Your defense can't stop him. You know, I just don't feel that optimistic about the outlook of the Jaguars moving forward for the rest of this year.